there! I am Flintworth, and welcome to Creature Creator, the show where I help you build monsters and encounters inspired by your favorite characters. Today we're here in the Big Apple to put together a showdown between you and the public menace himself, Spider-Man. Created by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, The Amazing Spider-Man has been gracing comic book pages for over 60 years, during which he has appeared in over a dozen movies, countless video games, and in hours upon hours of television. With many more planned works on the way, it is hard to argue that Marvel Comics is a more popular superhero than everyone's favorite Webhead. I mean, you don't have to look any further than the box office returns for No Way Home to see the effect Spider-Man has on people. All the more reason, I say, to take the time to get inspired by the character to create some really memorable games for your friends and you. First things first, let me address the riot in the room. Why am I helping you fight Spider-Man rather than be Spider-Man? And frankly, that's because there's already a ton of published works out there that already let you do so. For instance, the Masks A New Generation line from Magpie Games has a full rule set perfectly ready to help players create their own comic book adventures. Over in Dungeons & Dragons, you can create your own budget Spider-Man by playing as a monk with a cloak of Arachnia. Hell, if you're willing to wait, Marvel has plans to release their own official tabletop RPG, Marvel Multiverse, later this spring. And the best part is, no matter which of those systems you choose, no one has to fight for the privilege to be Spider-Man. Just base your game around the events from Spider-Verse or its sequel Spider-Geddon, and you're all set to go. I call dibs on Spider-Man Noir though. This is why, with so many player options readily available, that I thought it would be a fun, fresh twist to create a spectacular boss fight instead, giving your players a chance to form their own Sinister Six team of villains. I mean, why should the heroes get all the fun, right? Okay, sure. I suppose you could set up a fight for the goody two-shoes out there. After all, Spider-Man has had his fair share of fights with other heroes due to mistaken identity or mind control. But I'm here to give the villainous players out there some love today. So let's go break down those stat sheets and scenarios I have in mind for your D&D 5th edition games. Why 5th edition? Because it's the most popular. Sue me. From my spectacular Webhead, I of course took inspiration from the original Spider-Man from Earth 616, Peter Parker. Partially because he is the most recognizable version of the character, but mostly because his power set is the one all the other versions are built off of. Which means my Webhead doesn't become equipped with abilities like Miles Morales' Venom Blasts, nor is it empowered by things like Gwen Stacy's symbiote. That said, if you'd like to add those traits or other powers to my stat sheets, which you can find the download links for in this video's description by the way, go for it. Build the public menace of your dreams and let your imagination run wild. As for me, my Webhead is inspired by Parker's early days as Spider-Man. Mere months after he was bitten by the radioactive spider, this Spidey is a young and inexperienced teen hero, unaccustomed to his new strength and abilities. To reflect this, my Webhead has high dexterity but low wisdom, leaving them open to obvious traps or ploys that more experienced heroes would pick up on. Furthermore, I also wanted to show that this hero still doesn't know their own strength, so I set that to be a little lower than what many may expect. I must admit I struggled the most with what kind of constitution score to give Peter. Throughout the years, he's gone through all kinds of abuse. What might stop him dead in his tracks one issue might be easily shrugged off in another. In the end, I decided to not look at what Spider-Man has endured, but rather how he has overcome it. One of the best parts of the character is that he isn't invincible. He does take his licks, but still manages to get up to save the day every time. And my rather average constitution score for Webhead is designed to reflect that. Charisma, on the other hand, was easy to work out to be the second lowest score. I mean, with all the bad puns and dad jokes Peter quips out, there is no way that score is high at all.
Here's your change!
On the ability and action front, my Webhead does of course come equipped with a pair of web blasters to help you spin all kinds of web-based objects and traps, the of course required powers of a spider, like enhanced healing and heightened senses, and to help recreate those moments of heroic determination, this Webhead comes tricked out with legendary resistance. For those looking for a greater challenge, I've also put together a superior version of my Webhead, who's had a few more years of crime fighting underneath his belt. This masked vigilante comes with better stats, a greater pool of hit points, and a set of legendary actions for players to contend with. Scenario-wise, you have a lot of options. For instance, you could go with a classic showdown fight between your players and the lone hero. This would entail making a map bordered by a few structures on the sides with not a whole lot in the middle, like a city street or a back alley. Up to you whether there's anything like vehicles or throwable objects like boxes and trash cans. But we are building encounters for a team of villains here, so we can have a bit more fun with the setup. For example, you can flip the script on the classic hostage situation, where the party has to work together to keep our Webhead from rescuing their prisoners, which could call for fun maps based on your player's secret hideouts, coming complete with evil henchmen, wacky science experiments, and more. There's also my favorite option of creating a really cool chase scene, where your players are trying to make a getaway with a haul of stolen goods, with the Webhead in fast pursuit, forcing them to not only have to outmaneuver the hero, but also to outplay them to get away. What's worked for me in the past when putting together chasing encounters has been a simple map like this, where I have not really a whole lot of details, just enough to go and build up the scene of my chase, with a single vehicle in the center of the map. Now, ideally, you want something large enough for your player characters to stand on top of, hang out the side, that sort of thing, like a van or maybe a train if you want to use the theme of the subway I have here. Whatever the case, it's just a matter then of using your imagination to build up the intensity, the chaos of the scene, so you don't have to go and actually move this vehicle onto their map pieces as you play along. No matter the setup though, you are going to want to have plenty of tall structures and surfaces for your Webhead to swing on. This will be vital not only to make the most out of the Webhead's abilities, but it is also because this opens up your encounter to involve as many unique surfaces to fight on as possible. Half the spectacle of Spider-Man's fights is that he can go toe-to-toe on almost any surface. So you better make sure to give your players a few abilities or maybe even some equipment that allows them to do the same to make the most of these encounters. As far as bending my Webhead stat sheets for other genres or settings, I made sure to leave things simple enough so that you can play with the details as your game requires. The source of the Webhead's powers can come from magical spells or items for those in a fantasy setting, or even be supernaturally based if you wanted to create some kind of spider eldritch horror. Remember, we are looking to be inspired by our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man here. So don't be afraid to play with the concept when setting up your stories and games. After all, when Spidey was first conceived, Stan Lee was told that the character wouldn't work, that it wouldn't sell. It wasn't until he was given the go-ahead to do essentially whatever he wanted with the final issue of Amazing Fantasy did he take his shot with artist Steve Ditko. That single leap of faith produced one of the greatest heroes of our time. So who knows? Maybe the games you create today will end up being the next amazing story of tomorrow. Hey everybody, thank you for watching today. Please do me a favor and leave a comment below if you have any ideas for my next video. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. Spider-Man out!